different options, try those, see if they work for short-term emergencies. But then when it comes to actually a long-term emergency, when your budget can allow and you've researched and learned more about products, then you can actually have the more durable products that you can use day in, day out in a longer-term emergency. So that's kind of a little bit of a tip for those of you who are here and getting started. And also, when it comes to food storage, since we talk so much about food storage on our blog, we recommend learning how to use your food storage with power first, and then transitioning to the no power, powerless cooking. So we learned how to grind our wheat first in our electric grinders, and then now we feel confident that we would actually know what to do with our hand grinders. So anyways, Jody's going to start off talking about fuel, and we'll go from there. We'll just follow the agenda, and we'll introduce each representative, who we're very grateful to have. And we're also very grateful, before I forget, for the school here for allowing us to come, because they allowed us to come. We were able to offer this event to y'all free of charge. So thanks to the school, specifically Jackie. I hope to see her in here. She helped set up, and she's been really great at coordinating this. So we're really grateful to be here.
Thank you, Jackie.
Forgot to start our video camera, so if you're watching on video, you missed the intro. It was awesome. Even Julie being pregnant was awesome. So in your handouts, there's a cooking fuel overview. Cooking fuel is honestly a little bit scary to me. When I started researching, I heard that there's different limitations on how much you can store, and then they're like, don't store it inside, and be careful it's not next to this and next to that. So it's a little intimidating. So definitely, if you're going to store a lot of it, make sure to contact your local fire department or somebody who can tell you the rules for your area. That may not be very easy to do. It took me a lot of phone calls, and I got different answers, different people that I called. So that's just a warning. But so if you're worried and you're worried about legalities, make sure to try to get a hold of the right person in your area. Wood is typically not restricted as long as it's kept nice and tidy and not overboard, but it's very bulky to store a lot of it. But you can use wood in a lot of things, and you can use it indoors in your fireplace. And then there's propane. You can buy the big propane tanks, like your barbecue grills. You can also buy the little ones that will attach to different appliances, different cooking stoves that you can use. Propane is one of the scary ones to store, depending where you live. Some places you can have like the big, huge propane tanks, and other places you're not allowed to have that much stored. And that's one of the ones that's very combustible, so you can't store indoors. Charcoal, and there's also a consideration is shelf life on some of them. So, and those are another thing that kind of varies. Some places will say different things for different fuels. And charcoal, some places will say it stores indefinitely. I found if it's like the quick light charcoal, it doesn't last as long. So I'd go for the regular charcoal over a quick light. And charcoal's also very big and bulky to store for how much burn time you get. So but it's very easy to use, and people are really comfortable with it. Butane is one that you can store indoors, and you can cook with it indoors. So definitely, I would recommend using some kind of butane stoves. We're going to talk a little about those today. And then some of the other smaller fuels, you can get sterno cans. These can be used for heat or cooking. Sterno where heat sells, those kind of things. There's alcohol stoves. I don't think we brought one of those, but so you can burn alcohol indoors also. There's a product called InstaFire that you can store this inside. It's a fuel starter, but you can also burn it as fuel and cook with it in some of the different stoves and ovens that we're going to talk about. I love this because you can store as much as you want inside, in buckets, in cans. It's not as scary. And then there's fuel tablets, like Nesbit tablets. These kind of things will work in something like a wingtip stove. Those kind of things are light and pretty cheap, and they work for small amounts. Like if you need to boil a cup of water or something to do an MRE or whatever, they work great for backpacking, 72-hour kit kind of things. So definitely consider your fuel with what your purposes are. So there's going to be maybe different purposes with disaster kits than there are with long-term, the world is ending and I have to live off of this for the rest of my life. And then the one fuel source which people forget about a lot is the sun. And we're really excited to have Paul Munson here. He's the president of Global Sun Oven. And sun ovens were one of the first products for powerless cooking that we used because they claim like it works just like your oven and it's really easy to use. So we're like, okay, if it's like my oven, I think I can handle that. So basically, he's going to give us an overview of the global sun oven, and our philosophy is kind of, as long as you can use the sun, then use it, because it's infinite. And all of these other things, eventually there's going to come a point where you burn through your fuel, literally. So if you can use the sun as much as you can, then you're going to be able to conserve the rest of your fuel. So we're going to just give Paul some space on this table and invite him up to come and teach you about global sun ovens for... Whoop. That one's not combustible. Maybe it will be now. I'll put his Diet Coke in. And he's going to give us a chat for about 10 minutes about global sun.
Yes, I'll have to hold it. You talk with my hands. There we go.
I think we ran out of handouts, but we'll pass around
There's a paper down there.
a paper to email if you didn't get one.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I'm from Sun Ovens International. We make the sun ovens. And ironically, we have sun ovens in about 130 different countries around the world. And we do a lot of work internationally. But since 2008, 42% of the sun ovens we've sold in the entire world, we sold in the state of Utah for some reason. So, we've developed a class that we try to educate people on, and we'll be condensing it to try to make it as short as possible, and then we do have a table at the end of the hall, and I'll be happy to answer individual questions for you. A sun oven basically is a very simple device. You set it in the sun, and you can bake, boil, and steam foods in it. So a sun oven is designed, for those of you who aren't familiar with it, it folds up, it carries like a suitcase, it weighs 21 pounds. It sets up in seconds, and it's got these reflectors that reflect the light into the chamber. In really good sun, a sun oven will get as hot as 400 degrees Fahrenheit, but pretty consistently 350, 375 degrees Fahrenheit. And you can bake, and you can boil, and you can steam foods in it. So, but the only thing you can't cook, you can cook everything you cook on your stovetop or in your oven, but the only thing you can't cook in a sun oven is fried foods. And the sun oven has a tray, which you probably won't see from the back, but it has a tray inside that keeps your food level if you move it to follow the sun. And then it has a leg. It has a leg built in the back that allows you then to adjust it wherever the sun is in the horizon. So in the winter or the early morning, when the sun is further off in the horizon, you can raise it up. Pretty much now from the beginning of May through early September, you don't even need to raise it up unless you're cooking in the very early morning or late afternoon. Now the amazing thing about cooking in a sun oven is that food doesn't burn and food doesn't dry out. So it's about the most forgiving method of cooking you'll ever find. The reason that food doesn't burn in the sun oven is that when you have food inside a pot, the food inside the pot, the air around the pot, and the pot itself all heat evenly. The entire chamber is the same temperature. When you think of, when you cook something on your stove burner, you're transferring the heat from the stove burner to the pot to the food, and of course you have to keep stirring it to keep it from burning. In the sun oven, food doesn't burn, so you don't have to worry about that. Now, unlike many other preparedness items, the sun oven is actually something that will easily pay for itself. I was teaching this class in Arizona, and a gentleman said that he had gotten a sun oven, he kept track of how much he used it, he kept track of how much money he saved by using it, and he figured that he paid for a sun oven in less than 9 months. But then what he did, he continued to use his sun oven, and the more he used it, the more money he saved. He then used that money to fund the rest of his food storage and emergency preparedness. So it's a great tool for food storage, for emergency preparedness. He shared the greatest food storage tip I've ever heard. I just want to share it with you briefly. He said when he first got into food storage, everybody was talking about it. He wasn't sure what to do. Some talked freeze-dried food, some said dehydrated, some said they were storing foods for 72 hours, some said for a year, and he was really confused. So finally he got the brilliant idea to go home, clear a shelf off in his pantry. He put a little card in the pantry that said food storage. He went to the supermarket and bought the smallest jar of anchovies he could find. He put the anchovies on the shelf, and then He said, when anybody asks me, he absolutely hates anchovies, he can say, I have a year's supply of something. So if you want to start with food storage and you don't know where to start with something you don't like, and it's real easy to have a year's supply of it. But in the sun oven, as I said, you can bake and you can boil and steam foods in it. It's about the most forgiving method of cooking you'll ever find. There's two ways to cook in a sun oven. Let's say I was going to make a 3-pound chicken. I could put a chicken in a pot, put it in the sun oven. If I preheated the oven and I refocused the oven every 30 minutes, I could cook a 3-pound chicken in about an hour and a half. Or I could take a frozen chicken, put it in the sun oven in the morning, set the oven facing south, and leave for the day and come back at supper and have a cooked roast. So you can slow cook all day, or you can cook, and it takes about 15 minutes longer than your regular oven or stovetop for each time you open the door on a sunny day, and it really works wonderfully. Now when it comes to emergency preparedness, oftentimes when I talk to people, the one thing I find that nobody takes into consideration is hot water. Everybody thinks about water for drinking, and we can use the sun oven for that, because you can boil water or pasteurize water in it. When it comes to hot water, you know, in our daily routines, we use more energy to heat water for things like doing dishes, or if you're in a preparedness situation, personal hygiene. But in our daily living, today, most of us use much more fuel for hot water than we did for cooking. And a sun oven's great because you can, if you want to, you could be cooking in it. The pots in it are designed so they can stack too high, so you can, with the even heat, you can put a lot more in, but you can cook 2 or 3 different things at the same time. But I could be cooking in the sun oven on 2 pots and still put 2 canning jars next to it and be heating the water to do the dishes at the same time. In addition to drinking water, you can, in addition to hot water, you can pasteurize water in the sun oven or boil it. If you put water in a pot inside the sun oven with a lid on it, you can boil it. The drawback of boiling is that most altitudes water boils at 212 degrees, but it takes as much energy to bring water from 200 degrees to 212 degrees as it does to bring it from the ambient temperature up to 200. So when you use the sun oven, it's something that, you know, or any kind of fuel that you're going to use, if you need to boil water, it takes a lot of energy. In the developing world, for years, we've been working with little devices called WAPIs, water pasteurization indicators. This is just a little plastic tube, has wax in it. When the wax melts and goes to the bottom, you know the water's safe to drink. Pasteurizing water is bringing it to a temperature above 159 degrees Fahrenheit for 6 minutes. That will kill all the germs in the water, but normally, of course, with boiling at the bubbles, the visual indicator, well, this replaces that. And these are designed so you can put it in this little holder. That's much easier if you're not trying to hold a microphone.
Want me to hold the mic for you?
I got it, thanks. You can put it in this little holder, and then what happens is that when the wax, it floats on top, and the wax goes to the bottom, the water is safe to drink, you can take it out, the wax will reharden, you can reuse it hundreds of times. I did a project in Haiti where we taught people how to use these, went back 3 years later, and they're still using the same WAPI every day. So it's something that works incredibly well when you cook in the sun. Now the other nice thing about cooking in a sun oven is that you know, it's the most energy efficient way you'll ever find to rehydrate freeze-dried foods. A lot of people, as part of their food storage, will have freeze-dried foods, and when you look at the recipe on the back of the can of freeze-dried foods, it tells you boil water, and it tells you how much water to boil, and then pour the boiling water over your freeze-dried food and stir it in. In the sun oven, you can take the freeze-dried food cold, just put it in the sun oven, right out of the can, take 1/3 less water than what the can tells you to do, and you'll find your freeze-dried food will rehydrate without having to use all the energy to boil it. So it's something that can really make a lot of sense. In most of Utah, there's enough sun to use a sun oven 60 to 65% of the days. So if you're looking at storing food for a year, it's pretty difficult to store fuel for a year. There's a lot of really good suggestions of what you can do with fuel. The nice thing about a sun oven is if you start using it, it will pay for itself before you get to a preparedness situation. And then if you need to use it on the days when it's sunny, you can use the sun oven. On the days when it's overcast, then you can do other things with it. Because of the taste in it, the sun oven is designed too that it's great for baking bread. That's probably the most challenging thing with fuelless cooking is the idea of baking bread. You can take and put 2 bread pans inside the sun oven, bake 2 loaves of bread at the same time, and it comes out great. And the amazing thing about baking bread in the sun oven is that it doesn't dry out. This morning I was doing a class, or at noon I did a class, and The bread was finished when we started the class. The class went about an hour and 15 minutes, and I had bread overcooked by an hour and 15 minutes, and nobody could tell the difference in the taste. So it's a very forgiving way of cooking. There are some pointers and things that are necessary in baking bread in the sun oven. The most important thing to remember is you never raise your bread to the same height if you're going to do it in the sun oven. You raise it till it's about 3/4 of an inch below the top of the bread pan before you put it in. Because of the even heat of the sun oven, when you preheat the oven, and then you put the bread in, the temperature is going to drop and raise. So if you raise it till it's about 3/4 of an inch below the top of your bread pan, then it will raise, when the temperature drops and raises, it will raise to just the right height. So even, probably the question people ask me most in Utah is, well, how sunny does it have to be to use it? Well, basically the answer is pretty simple. As long as there's enough sun to cast a shadow, you can cook in the sun oven. If it's overcast to the point you can't see a shadow, then you can't cook in the sun oven. So it's pretty simple. And as I say, there's 60–65% of the days you can use the sun oven. The sun oven also, and I'll have these on display at our table, is available with a set of drying or dehydrating racks, and you can use it as a solar dryer or solar dehydrator, which is great for drying now. But think about an emergency situation. If you're growing something in your garden and suddenly you got to the point where your garden came in and was ready to be harvested at a time when you didn't have any power, it's nice to know that you could dry it, dehydrate it, and save what you grew by using the sun oven. It's phenomenal to use for things besides for cooking. I know that we're talking about wonder boxes and hot boxes. The sun oven makes a perfect wonder box if you use another fuel to start your food and then let it finish in the sun oven. There's ways you can use it to enhance your winter sprouting and a number of different things with it. So there's use for it year-round they can get with the sun oven, and it's just a phenomenal tool. We developed it with the idea and make it with the idea that it could be used in a developing country for 15 years with no maintenance, which means if you put it in your storage shed or garage, when you're not using it, there's no reason it won't last a lifetime. So it's not something that's going to fall apart in a very short period of time. Lately, it's been around, it's been on the market since 1986, so it's very well tested. There's a lot of knockoffs of it, a lot of things that look similar, but if it doesn't say sun oven or global sun oven, frankly, you'll find there's a huge difference in the performance between it. So after we're done, after the presentations, I'll be more than happy to answer any questions you have at our table, which is down the hall at the very end. Thank you very much.
That was pretty impressive, Paul. We've been to some of his presentations before, and he can spend an hour talking about it and keep you entertained and interested the whole time, so he got that pretty condensed. Next we're going to be talking about the volcano. The volcano rep could not be here tonight, so we'll go ahead and tell you about it, but I've used this with my family a number of times, not this one. Mine got terribly dirty. Because we went camping a little while ago, and we went to a campsite that didn't allow for fires, which I'm not sure why you would ever really want to go camping and not have a fire. But there was no fires. It wasn't like a dry season. But I said, you know what? I'll get my volcano. It wasn't that far from our house, and we built a full fire in the volcano on top of nice green grass. And then we took it off, and it didn't even mess with the grass, didn't touch the grass. And it was a nice campfire. So we were able to be camping without our campfire. Anyway, so this is the volcano. Basically, the volcano is a multi-fuel cooking stove. You can use, with the volcano, wood, obviously, if you can build a campfire. You can use propane, which you can use either the big propane that you have for your barbecue, or you can use the smaller camping propanes with the attachment. So basically, this is the propane attachment adapter, and then trying to show you, I'm going to like hold things up. Just want people to be able to see. So basically, you would attach this hose with the propane adapter into your propane, put it at the bottom of the volcano, so you can see that there. And then there is a thanks, Rudy. This helps. Thanks. And then you put this on top. And then you can use this, I mean, as a grill. You can put a frying pan right on it. You can put a box on it, anything you want. Also, you can use what's called the volcano lid. And this
is what we get for bringing the new one.
So you can put the volcano lid right on top of the volcano and then bake in there. So that's kind of neat. So that's with propane. Charcoal works essentially the same. You put the charcoal, you put the grate down at the bottom, and then you put the charcoal down. You light it, you can use it. You can use Instafire in here, which we have an Instafire guy here. He'll be able to tell you a lot more about Instafire as well. So also you can put a Dutch oven, which is kind of neat for right in there. Now, Jody's Dutch oven, if you're using it, you want to get a 12-inch, just so you know. It'll fit perfectly, but hers has the little feet on the bottom so that she can use it kind of anywhere. So it'll still totally fit and work, but the regular Dutch oven will slide right in there. And then so you can use Dutch oven in there, which in a Dutch oven, you can cook, I mean, anything, especially yummy treats like peach cobbler. So that's kind of the gist of the volcano: multi-fuel, multi-cooking pots, pans, ovens, different ways you can use it. And oh, this best part: you can collapse it really small and easily. So it comes really flat, and it comes with. So it comes with a bag, and then all the stuff fits in here. And then you can just use bag. So it's all inclusive. That's why they call it the volcano collapsible. It collapses. And then to get it open, the first time I saw this was at Costco, and they did a demo and I was sold. There you go. So, anyways, that's the volcano. Now we are going to hear from Ben and Steve. Oh, Connell. We're hearing from Connell. Connell from, I'm getting myself mixed up. From Instafire. Instafire is a fuel he actually introduced it to us about a year ago. Him and his partner said, can we cook lunch for you? And show you this product. And as soon as he said, can we cook lunch for you, we didn't hear anything after that. We're like, oh sure, come on over. So anyways, they showed us this Instafire fuel, and it's awesome, but I'll let him tell you all about it.
Hello. Your address system is interesting. I ended up about 5 miles down the road, but we got it figured out. It's nice to be here. We appreciate you coming. About 7 years ago, I guess, maybe, I saw an old man at a mountain man rendezvous burning a rock. And I was a scoutmaster at the time, and I thought, that's pretty interesting. I'll take some, I'll buy some and then show it to my scouts how to burn a rock. And I bought some and put them on my shelf, and about 3 months later brought them out and showed the kids, and they didn't like them. So I saw this old man about a year later, and I said, you're that horse's rear end that sold me those rocks that didn't burn. And he said, well, let me show you kind of what I've done since. And it almost worked, not quite. And so what we did is I said, look, I'm not interested in stealing your idea. What I'd like to do is develop the product, patent it, and then I'll pay you royalty. I'm happy to do that. I'm not trying to rip you off or anything like that. And so we did. And I met my partner, Frank, about that same time, and I said, let's take this and see what we can do with it. So for 9 months, out in an owl-infested warehouse, we tried this product. And we first had to blow up the little rock and, you know, try to make it little, and then throw a match and woo, no, we didn't want that. And so anyway, we toyed with it for 9 months until we perfected the formula. Basically what it is, and I'll let you see, you can see it out there, and there. They won't let me burn it. It's so safe. I was going to burn it in my hand. The rock is an insulated rock. It's so light it'll literally float and burn right on top of the water. And I can burn it in my hand, sit there and let it burn. So if I can burn it on my hand, that means I can burn it on ice. I can burn it on the snow. And it'll take 40, 50 mile an hour winds and rain, sleet, whatever. Military uses it, Canadian Special Forces uses it. And basically what it is, it's this volcanic rock, and we mix, it holds 7 times its weight in moisture. So we take inert, all natural materials, and we soak it in these rocks, and then we seal it with a paraffin wax. And we add some wood pellets and some other things that I'm not allowed to tell you what we do, but basically what you've got is a very safe product that you can store for the next 30 years and be able to cook your food. Let me just tell you a quick story. When I had an opportunity to go down to Katrina after that happened, talked to 2 police officers there, and I said, tell me really what happened here. And so we were in the airport at the time, and they said, see this right here? It's kind of a 3-winged airport. He said, over here was the morgue, here was triage, and over here we're trying to get people in and out. He said, we lost over 10,000 people at Katrina, and I said, that was never reported. And he said, yeah, I know, we were commanded never to divulge exactly what happened. And I said, well, what was going on? He said, absolute lawless behavior. He said, you might have seen where people were actually shooting people, you know, out in the helicopter. They're trying to save people, they're shooting at the helicopter. He said, absolutely crazy stuff. He said, I said goodbye to my wife that night, not knowing if I would ever see her again. He said, that's how crazy it was. And he said, we had all this water around. He said, when people get thirsty, they get nuts. They get hungry, they get thirsty, they go crazy. And he said, so what would happen is they'd take the moldings off of their windows and doors to try to make a fire to boil water, which in turn, then they could drink the water. Well, the moldings and the chairs and the furniture they used had all the paints, the varnishes and things, they asphyxiated themselves. And so we had that big issue as well. So as long as wood is raw and dry, you're fine to use it as fuel. Propane's another interesting, it's a great product as long as it's rotated. The reason they have use-by dates on them is because the seals go bad in them. And after about 5 years, the seals start to go bad. And so your propane, butane, you go to use it, 20 years from now, and it won't come out, it won't work. So if you're going to store propane or butane, make sure you keep it rotated and you'll be fine. You're also limited on propane and butane, how much you can store, because when the fire department comes to your house, they want to know what they're coming to. This product is so safe, we were just endorsed by the Boy Scouts of America. They, one of their requirements that it was safe enough to be used with the tiger cubs, they call them, 6 years of age. And then we go into cubs, which are 8-year-olds and a little older, and weebles and on up. But they also wanted it to be able to be used, powerful enough in any survival condition. So, rain, snow, whatever, and yet it's not going to flare up on you. So that's the product. Here's what it looks like. Looks It's very similar to kitty litter. Get that all the time?
Doesn't smell like kitty litter.
No. There's no smell to it. When it burns, you will get a little bit of a pine smell from the wood pellets. We use a pine pellet. And so a little bit similar to a campfire. You don't get all the smoke, but you do get a little bit from the wood pellets burning. What's actually burning at first is the rock. The rock acts as a wick. Do you have a question? Oh, you wait. Just saying hi?
No, I do have a question, but I'll ask you later.
Okay.
I was just wondering if you could, this has to be burned in the house in a fireplace or something.
In a fireplace is fine. You do have to have ventilation. There's continuing fire. It'll take away the oxygen, and you don't want to do that. So what I would use if I'm in a survival situation, first of all, thank you for being here. In our meetings with the power company and stuff, I said, what happens if we have the earthquake that they're talking about? How long are we going to be without power? What do you think their answer was? Any idea?
A month.
I heard a month, 6 weeks. They told us over 5 months. The reason for that is Utah has the worst power grid in the United States. And the reason for that is because we've never had a natural disaster here. In an emergency situation, the federal government comes in and redoes the infrastructure of the power grid. And so where we haven't had a natural disaster, they've just been band-aiding the old. Well, the old and the new don't interface. So the whole infrastructure has to be redone.
With your Instafire, how much Instafire does it take to be 13 briquettes?
13 briquette, half a cup.
Thank you.
Okay. It lights similar to a candle, and so it starts out very slow. That's why the Scouts liked it, just very slow. After about 30 seconds to a minute, you'll have about a 12 to 14-inch flame. It burns right at 1,000 degrees. A normal wood fire is about 400, 425, and so it's about twice as hot as a regular fire. And so that's why it dries out wet wood so well, or starting charcoal briquettes. One of my very favorite things to do with it is start the charcoal briquettes. You don't have to have any lighter fluid. One of the big issues with lighter fluid now, it has what they call benzene. Benzene has just been linked to leukemia. There's a big article in Denver Post here a couple months ago about the dangers of benzene. Most of your fuels have benzene in them. We are benzene free. If you'd like charcoal briquettes, it's great to do it in a volcano. Sprinkle a little bit in the bottom, light it, and then put that grate on it. Put your charcoal briquettes, and you'll have, I can light 75 briquettes in about 10, 15 minutes. That's another, you've probably seen these, bought some as low as $10 at Walmart. If the only thing it needs is a little bit of space, you can't put a pan right on top of it or you'll smother it. So if I'm going to cook on it, probably what I would do, or with it, I would put my Instafire down here, put my pan, like that. That way I can use it to fry. So if I'm going to fry something, I just use Instafire. Warming something up, boiling water, that kind of thing. If I'm going to cook breads or something that I need a long period of time, an hour cooking, then I would use the Instafire then to start my charcoal briquettes. So therefore, to store for food storage, store a bunch of briquettes as well, and then along with your Instafire. People ask me, well, how much do you need to store? 1 cup will burn about 20 to 30 minutes. So depending on how much you're cooking at a time, maybe 2 cups for a meal. This would, a 5-gallon bucket has 180 cups in it. And so, to give you an idea, your supply would be about, the rule of thumb is 5 buckets per person per year. So, at 4 people in the family, maybe 20 buckets. Gives you an idea. Yeah.
What was your source on the fire briquettes in Utah?
That was in our meeting with Utah Power, or well, Rocky Mountain Power.
I just find it interesting that you're sticking in a safe on what's down here. It doesn't stop it. But I just
I don't know. I'm just, if it's a month or a week, I don't know. Yeah, either way, we're gonna need some stuff to cook with. As far as you can store it, like I said, for the next 30 years, and you're gonna be safe. The other thing you want to be real careful of with fuel. With any fuel that I know of, except Instafire, it does what they call leach. So if you want to try it out, take some gasoline, put it next to your hot dog buns while you're cooking, and then taste your hot dog buns in about 30 minutes to an hour, and you'll taste the gasoline. That's called leaching. So any fuel stored away from your food, with the exception of Instafire, you can put it right next to your food, no problem at all. But yeah.
What is the shelf life?
Shelf life at least 30 years. Basically what you've got is a million little candles. So how long does a candle last? People ask me, well, how waterproof is it? Like I said, it'll float and burn right on top of water. We were doing some filming up at ski resort up in Ogden, Snow Basin, and put it down, lit the fire, and take branches off any tree, dead wood, cook your food, all that kind of stuff. I came back a week later, snow snowed on it, I cleared it away, lit it again. So give you an idea. Yeah.
Does heat affect it, I'm thinking, in the garage storage?
You need to store it, thank you for that, that's a great question. You do need to store it less than about 200 degrees. 160. I did have one problem in Arizona. The guy stored it in his attic, and that was the only time. And what happened is it clumped at the bottom. He just broke it up and still worked. So anyway.
We're gonna have the booths. We're gonna have the booths out here. So if you're specifically interested in a certain product, we just want to make sure everybody has time to go. And that from after 8:15 you can ask all the questions. So thanks so much, Connell. Now we are going to have Ben and Steve. Or Steve? Steve. From Firebox. And Firebox is an alternative stove, which he'll tell you about is small enough that you can fit it in your 72-hour kit, but efficient enough that you can do tons of stuff with it. So it acts like a stove, but it's tiny stove.
No, can you guys hear me without the microphone? Is that okay? No?
And if you want to see Instafire burning on snow or in a hand, there's a video on our blog of Jim Cody doing it. So Connell will still let them see. We'll let them see the Instafire in the hand. We're not letting it in the building.
Okay, so a really popular stove for preparedness is the rocket stove. Let's see, what's the brand name of rocket stove? Anybody know? Stove Tech. This is basically puts out the same amount of power as what a Stove Tech rocket stove puts out. Okay, is anybody familiar with the Stove Tech rocket stove? It's like this big and it's lined with brick and it weighs probably 40 pounds, I'm guessing. Anyway, this little stove, now you can see me hold this.
The Van White.
Okay, this little stove has its burn chamber is actually bigger than what the Stove Tech rocket stove's burn chamber is. We call these the fire sticks, and they have several different uses. You pop this off, this is your ash pan. So it unfolds like that, and then there's the fire grate comes down, and that's what holds it into its position like that. So now it's held into that position, and it won't collapse on itself at all. But in order to collapse it again, you just push that fire grate up, and then the whole thing folds down just like that. So it's extremely compact, but yet extremely versatile. And I'll show you some of the different things you can burn with it. In this regular position like this, you could just put twigs and sticks and just build a little fire in it like you would with a rocket stove. And then you have your pot would actually sit up here on top, and you can still continue to feed little chunks of wood or twigs and sticks. And if you landscaped your yard with bark or wood chips, you've got your 2-year supply of wood. So that works out good. And then I'll show you a couple things. You can use these fire sticks to create a smaller platform. You put those in that position. That allows you to do something as small as a cup like that. Or you can just use, regular size household type pots or pans or whatever else, but it's sturdy enough you could actually put something as heavy as this, as the big cast iron, whatever you have. It's going to hold up to whatever you need. So you've got your wood, your twigs and sticks that you can use. You can also adapt it to use the Instafire. If you slide the ash pan in, normally its position is like this. It slides in on some shelves down there to catch the ashes, but you can actually turn it over, and there are some tabs in there that index it to hold it into this position that seals off the holes at the bottom. So that allows you to go ahead and dump your Instafire right in there, light that up however much you need for whatever your job you're doing, and you can cook with the Instafire like that. So that works out real nice. You can also set it up for like sterno cans or whatever else. You can see there's these diamond-shaped holes here. There's 2 sets of them, and they're offset by 1/2 inch. So that gives you 6 different positions that you can slide these fire sticks through to create a platform to use a variety of different fuels. The sterno cans themselves actually come in a few different sizes and shapes, but there's a lot of different brands of these type of gel alcohol canisters. So they come in different sizes and shapes, so that, all these different positions allow you to set this up wherever is going to work best for the can that you're using. So you want about 1 inch of headspace before your pot would actually, so gives it a chance for that flame to develop underneath your pot. But that also gives you a way to use an alcohol burner. You can set it up for the proper height for whatever type of alcohol burner. Alcohol burners come in a whole variety of shapes and sizes as well. So that's really handy that way. And then you can also set these up here in this position to create a platform to use the fuel tablets. Then the ash pan once again gets used in a different way. You set this up here, and then this is an SBIT tablet, and there's like 3 or 4 different types of solid fuel tablets, but you just set those. Depending upon what you're doing, you might want to use 2 or 1 or whatever else. You set that up there in that position, and once again, your pot or your pan just sits up on top, and the heat flows out the side. And it is very effective as a stove that way. Trying to think what else I may have missed. You can actually use the charcoal briquettes as well, depending upon, once again, what you're trying to do with it. Oh, you can, when the whole thing is hot, like if you want to adjust it for the wind or there's anything going on, you can actually use these fire sticks to pick the whole thing up, and if you need to kind of adjust it for the breezes or whatever else, you can do that. It's been designed to really work well in the different types of weather environments. These high sides act as a wind block, so if you have your wind is blowing this direction, you'd have your high sides blocking that wind rather than having it this way to where it would blow the heat out from under your pot. So that's a very effective feature that allows you to use it in higher wind conditions. I'm not sure if there's any other fuels that I've forgotten here. I think that we're pretty good. Pretty good. Yeah, briquettes.
If you wanted to do the Instafire up higher, instead of way down there at the bottom.
Yeah, and no, there's not any way of holding it up other than, unless what you could do is use a tuna can or something, and then you use the fire sticks to create a platform, and then you can put it at any height you wanted to. You just need to find a can or something that you can put the Instafire in.
We've tested it both ways, and there's no advantage in lifting it because it's in that chamber. the heat's contained in that chamber. You don't. The boil times are exactly the same whether it sits with a 2-inch head space or a 4-inch head space. So we've left it where it's at. But if you wanted to, like you said, you could put it in a 2 can or empty can and use the fire sticks then to support that can and just drop the Instafire in there.
Now, a lot of people will ask about its efficiency, you know, compared to maybe a rocket stove or something like that. And the rocket stoves are very efficient, but I think it's fractionally more efficient, if it is more efficient than what this would be. And this, you can burn it as high or as low as you want to. That's kind of how a rocket stove works, is it has the collar that you feed the fuel in is actually a restrictor of the amount of fuel that can go into the burn chamber at one time. So that's how it obtains its efficiencies, because it's restricting how much fuel you can put into it at one time. So if you're careful about how you put fuel into this, it can burn very efficiently, but yet if you want to have a big campfire, you can fully load this thing up with wood and have a fire coming out of it this big. So it really gives you a lot of versatility in it, and it's really a great tool for camping and family fun as well as emergency preparedness, just because it is a great portable campfire and makes awesome marshmallows and hot dogs.
What's it made out of?
It's made out of stainless steel.
What grade?
What grade? If I told you, I'd have to kill you.
What gauge?
What gauge? It's 18 gauge. Very heavy duty. Anyway, you'll have a chance to look at it out on the tables and kind of get an idea of its sturdiness.
Part of the reason we went with the 18 gauge is we tried a thinner gauge and it can't hold up to the heat. Briquettes, when it's fully loaded, will put that burn chamber, we've tested it out at almost 2,200 degrees. If you go with the 20 gauge, 22 gauge, or thinner material, it'll warp, even melt. So we can get a tremendous amount of heat out of it and it will not work. So we've got a really well-tested product that will hold up to any type of fuel that you may put in there as hot as you want to get it. Works really well.
Any other questions?
Thanks.
Firebox is cheaper than a rocket stove too. Like, the next company that we're going to introduce you to is Powerless. Powerless, we first heard about at Self-Reliance Expo that we went to, and we were very impressed with them. If you follow our blog, you know that every year in September we do an emergency preparedness challenge, and one of the days is always, you have no power today. How are you going to live through this? And we always we try all these things and we do videos of us doing this hard thing, and there's always somebody that says, I just used my generator and cooked with all my stuff. It was so easy. And we're always like, that's cheating, that's not fair. And our response is always, yeah, but how long is your generator gonna last? How much propane or gasoline or whatever can you store for your generator? And so when we heard about Powerless, it was like a light bulb that went on. If you can use the sun and replenish with the sun, it's similar to the sun oven. You're gonna be able to save fuel for times when there isn't sun. So it's gonna be a longer term emergency solution for you. So we have Malcolm, who's the product manager for Powerless, who is going to do some awesome demonstrations, and we're really excited to see this because this is the one product that we don't have ourselves yet. So don't giggle. We're going to get them someday. Come on. And then we can cheat and say, hey, today was easy.
I appreciate the introduction to the product. You guys are getting the second string tonight. The guy that usually does this is had to go to a funeral in Arizona. He's a lot funnier than I am. As I look out over the audience, I see a lot of women, and that's a good thing because this product is great for women, and I'll explain that in a minute. Maybe I could ask a couple of questions. How many of you have been in a power outage at home? Most of you at some point or another. How many of you have been in one during a storm at night? Okay. What were your needs during that time? Lights. What next after light? Heat. Yeah, you know, the three things that we find that people need in a crisis or an emergency, first they need light. because you can't do anything if you're in the total dark. Trust me, when all the lights go out, it's pretty dark most nights. So that's a big problem. The second thing they want really is communication. And so you want to be able to power up your cell phone or your laptop. You want to be able to tell other people you're okay or get a message out to somebody else. And then you kind of start thinking about, man, I just bought that rack of ribs in my freezer. Is that going to go bad? So you want to be able to preserve your food. You start thinking about those kind of things. Hummus can take care of all those needs. The other great thing about Hummus is, it's silent, it's safe, and it's renewable. Right? So the name comes from the story behind this. The guy who invented it, Glenn Jenkins, he was on a vacation with his family in the redwood forest. And he got back to camp after a day of hiking, and wanted to sit in his chair, and all of a sudden, everyone else came back to the camp, and the campground fired up their generators. And it just ruined the whole thing for him. He says, I don't want to hear all that noise, I don't want to smell those fumes, I came out here to get away from that. Sorry. So he started thinking, and when he got back, he decided, I'm going to build a generator. It's not a true generator. It's really a battery power source on steroids. It uses the new lithium-ion technology, and it has a shelf life of 10 years. It can do 2,000 complete cycles. That's charges and discharges. You can put a 100-watt solar panel hooked to this, and it will recharge it up in about 5.5 to 7 hours, depending on how bright the sun is that day. You can charge it with a water wheel, you can charge it with a wind turbine, or you can plug it into the wall, and it will charge in about 2.5 to 3 hours. So the next question is, well, what will it run, and how long will it run things? It will run pretty much anything. I just pulled the school's microwave over there. I'm going to plug this in here. Hopefully, now this is a low wattage microwave, so I'm hoping it will run this. Steve, can you just put it on that popcorn setting so I don't have to climb down enough? See if that'll come on. Okay, if this is a real big microwave and draws a lot of juice, what it would do, it would pop a breaker here. We automatically reset, but it's running right now. I wish I had a bag of popcorn, then you could smell it and hear the noise and you would know. But it's running that microwave right now.
That's on high.
Okay. So we'll do that. The other thing, we sell a kit with this. I'll just plug this in. I don't know if you can see this. It's a little light to come with it. You want to keep that with the machine all the time. It's like a USB port. Because you're going to want to see how to activate the machine and do things. So you want to be able to have that close by if there's a power outage. This light, it's quite a bit of light. I was going to have to turn off the lights to show you. But when you put that on a tripod, you've got pretty good light to do whatever you want to do. And I said, I'm married and I've got 4 daughters. I also have a Honda-powered gas generator. Neither my wife or any of my daughters have ever tried to do anything with that gas generator. Okay? I'm sorry, they just haven't ever bothered with it. And I guarantee you, if the power went out at my home, they wouldn't bother putting gas in it, and they wouldn't bother running the cord in from the outside because they'd have to vent it. They just wouldn't mess with it. They say, Dad, when you get home, you do this. The beauty of this, it doesn't need to be vented. You could store this right beside your baby's crib, and if it's fully charged when you put it there, you can come back a year later. I'm going to explain this key here. When you store it, you turn that key and you take it out. What that does, that disconnects the battery management system and the inverter from any phantom loss of power. So you can store this for a year, come back, put the key in like this, turn it on, and it's only going to have lost 5% of its charge. That's in 12 months. Now, if you have a lead-acid battery and you leave it for over 3 months, you've probably damaged the battery. It's not going to work. And that's a big investment. With this, you can leave it indefinitely. I said it had 2,000 complete cycles. that's at full power. After that, you'll probably get another 1,000 cycles at a slightly graded rate, maybe 80% of its capacity. I mean, any battery over time does degrade. The nice thing about this, though, there's no toxic chemicals or anything like that. It's very green. You could throw this in the landfill and it wouldn't hurt anybody to do that. So this is a cooking show. I really like Instafire, the stoves, and the solar oven that we've seen here. They're things that sometimes, if it's only going to be 5 or 6 hours and you've got something in the oven, it would be nice maybe to have some way to keep that warm so your meal isn't ruined. And you had a crock pot or something, you could put that in. This would run that no problem. Just put it in, turn it on, and go. Trying to think of some of the other things to tell you about this.
You can run a wheat grinder in a box, right?
Yeah, it will run a wheat grinder, and it just runs a lot of different things. The thing it's not really good at is wherever you're trying to get a lot of heat or a lot of energy, it just uses it too much. If you try to, convert the energy for heating purposes, it's not a good fit. We are in the process right now of trying to build this so that it has more power than it has. But for most things that we do, it's more than enough power. It will run a 5 cubic foot freezer, for example, for about 20 hours. If you hook a 100-watt solar panel to it, it'll run that indefinitely. So if you're out for 5 months, and you've got a couple of panels that you throw outside, you run the cords in, plug this up to your freezer, you're going to save all your food that you've had. So that lets you have more food storage, really, for your meats and things like that. And, it will run a crock pot, it will run a rice cooker, low wattage cooking utensils, all those kind of things. And you just plug it in, turn them on, and you're good to go. Keep it charged. So I think with that, I'll just kind of end. I'll just tell you one thing. I was going to tell you a joke. It's always risky, right? But I heard a good one today. And this woman, because the audience is mostly women, I thought they would appreciate this. She went into a pharmacist, and she asked the pharmacist if she could have some cyanide. And the pharmacist kind of says, "Cyanide? Why do you want cyanide?" And she says, "I want to kill my husband." The pharmacist went crazy. I don't know if he would, he wouldn't let her buy food storage. I don't know what the problem was. But the pharmacist says, that's a really bad idea. And if I sold it to you, I could lose my license. You could go to jail. It's just not worth it. Just walk away. She pulled out a picture, gave it to the pharmacist, and the pharmacist looked at the picture of the woman's husband and the pharmacist's wife. And the pharmacist said, "Why didn't you tell me you had a prescription?" So, you never know, right? We feel like this is a really friendly product towards women. Guys kind of understand the lead generator thing. But, gas goes bad, there's a limited supply of it, and if you're in a long period without gas or the ability to get it, the sun's going to come up, you're going to have your solar panel, you can renew this, it's going to meet your needs right away. So there's many, many uses for it. So I'll be happy to take questions out of the booth. Thanks.
Thank you, Malcolm. I know I've seen around a lot of people who have medical concerns, whether it be oxygen or medicine that needs to be refrigerated. These are really good to be able to, in a power outage, to be able to take care of them that way. So, next up, we have Tammy, and Tammy is a preparedness expert. We met Tammy at an expo, and we'll go to lunch and pick her brain, and it takes 3-4 hours, and we have so much fun. But anyway, she is going to demonstrate real quick a butane stove, which butane stove you can use indoor. That's a big question in the winter months. How do you cook inside? So she's going to talk a little bit about that. You also may recognize her from our blog. A little while ago, we introduced the Prepare My Life Planner, which goes hand in hand with emergency preparedness. You'll have to go to her booth and check it out. But basically, she made a product that I've been dreaming of, so that's really what caught our attention. But she is awesome. So, Tammy.
Okay, so that homeless is pretty cool. When he started saying microwaves, crock pots, Bosch mixers, he started talking my language. So I like that. But I have to tell you, I really dig the butane stove because I am so at home in my kitchen. And you know what? I feel at home and right in my kitchen with the butane stove. It comes in this lovely case. And you have to flip this over. They all come packaged like that. The first thing you're going to have to do is flip that over so you can put your pan here. They are so easy to work. I tell you, I love this. I mean, there are some disadvantages, but there are huge, huge pros with this. Okay, if you have to you guys know what the butane canisters look like? This is kind of hard one now. You don't hold the mic? You know what the butane canisters are like. I was going to take that out. It's block right there. Okay, anyways, you can at least come in and out really easy, although it's not coming out right now very easy. I don't know why. But you slide this canister in, and then you have to lock it in place. Oh, I know, I got it. It's not in the tab. Okay, so you just lock it in place. It is so easy. Once you lock that in place, you seriously use this like you would your oven. Anything you can do before I... Okay, I want to know, I did this like 15 times. I'm thinking, this is so cool. I cook with it all the time. And now all of a sudden I'm going to... here. I almost brought a second one like a spare. This is going to be the worst demo you've ever seen and that I've ever done. Okay? So I don't know exactly what's wrong because it's not going to work properly. Anyways, when it works properly, it is really the coolest thing ever. Because you can turn this on and it works just like your stove. Now, when you use some of the other fuels, like when you use like a propane stove, things, I love that you can have high and low. You can really vary the heat. On some of the fuels, you cannot do that, which doesn't matter because they work really well, but I like that I can do a high and a low and vary the heat on this. The butane, one canister, will last you about an hour and a half at a rolling boil. It'll last you about 5 hours on a simmer. So if you're going to simmer on the butane stove, you've got about 20 hours of cooking time in a 4-pack. So that's pretty good. Now, here's my favorite thing, as they've mentioned several times. It is indoor cooking. Cook with it indoor all the time. We do demos. When I see cooking demonstrations, I went to Thanksgiving Point one time. They were using their little butane stove, and they were doing it indoors. It is a clean burning gas. And so you can truly use it indoors. It's one of the few that you can use indoors, and I love that because there are days in Utah that it is going to rain, it is going to snow, it is going to be completely, undoable to cook outside. And you've got your little butane stove. They last about 8 to 10 years is the shelf life on them. Like Connell said, it is good to keep them rotated. There are legal limits. I called Salt Lake County, and the legal limit is 30 gallons in your home. Now, the cool thing about Instafire is that doesn't count in your legal limits because it's non-toxic. It's non-flammable. So it's non-combustible. It's flammable, non-combustible. This is combustible, but it's a safe fuel and it cleans and it burns clean. Now here's the other disadvantage about this, is to ship this, you have to pay a hazardous material fee, a handling fee. Some of the fuels you don't have to, like the Instafire you don't have to. So if you look on the order form, if you have this shipped, it's a higher price because we have to pay that extra fee to have this shipped. So we have a local pickup that we're going to arrange, so you don't have to do that. But truly, I like one of these. For how inexpensive it is one of your first and easiest ways to get a fuel alternative, a cooking alternative for cooking your food storage. Okay, we good? Anybody understand that, except for the stove's not going to work?
She'll get it to work and you can go to her room.
There we go. Thank you. Thanks, Tammy. After we lunch. Yes. Okay, really quick, this is not a stove, but this is one of our favorite Powerless cooking tools. When we first started food storage, before we even started our blog, we were like, how are we going to do food storage? We don't even know what wheat looks like, let alone how to cook with it, let alone what to do without a generator to cook it with, and how far we've come in 4 years. But so one of our first things we did was go and borrow a wheat grinder, learn how to grind wheat, and learn how to bake bread from our food storage with power. And it's taken about 3 years before we got brave enough to do it all without power. I think we have a video of doing bread from scratch, start to finish, by hand, and the Wonder Junior Deluxe is our favorite manual grinder. Julie's going to show you. So this one comes with a clamp. The table's too thick. So this is actually, if you know the country living, the big, huge hand grinders, this does side-by-side comparisons and beats or matches that grinder for about half the price. There's also hand grinders, you know, that are 60, 70 bucks that you can get. That I had one of those from my mom before I did food storage because she said she was never going to use it. And I said, well, I'll have it just in case. And then I tried to use it, and it was like it took a long time to get enough flour for bread. So this actually is very reasonable, and we don't just only use it for an emergency situation. These are easy enough to use on like a weekly basis with your daily bread if you don't have the budget to have an electric grinder and a manual grinder. And this hand grinder can also grind oily things like flax, nuts. It can make nut butter, things like that that will clog an electric mill. I'm going to go through the last stuff really fast. These are some cheap, inexpensive things you can use sort of on like a temporary basis or to practice with while you save up to buy some of the more expensive things. I know one of the first things we thought about in doing food storage was, oh my gosh, I have to buy a $400 shelf and a $300 oven and a da-da-da-da-da, and it seems really overwhelming. So if you start small and learn some of these things, then you can really explore and research and see what you end up using more, and then you can invest in some higher quality things. So one of our easy things is a number 10 can stove. There's tutorial in your handouts. Julie made this cute one for a gift, and there's a tutorial with like the cute labels that she does on our website. So if you want to do it for a gift, you can, or just make a simple stove. And a new product that we just learned about from Ben yesterday. Some of the pricing on there is only for the event. Yes, I think that was clear. Okay, so this is just an insert that you can use to slip inside any number 10 can. Ours is full of goodies. So you slip it inside, and this maximizes your airflow. So this is an inexpensive way to have a really good stove. It's like 15 bucks. And what it is basically is any fuels with an additive, like Instafire, or there's little like pellets that you can get. If they have an additive, if there's too much air, like in the firebox, it has all those holes, which are great for wood fires to get the oxygen through. But if it has an additive, it's going to really increase the efficiency of your flame and burn your fuel faster. Is that right? Or it burns through it faster. Maybe I should make Ben teach this. It's going to make your fuel last not as long. That's right?
Well, yeah.
That's why we have these guys come.
If you have any fuel that has an accelerant in it, if you throw a lot of oxygen to it, it burns the fuel faster, and you don't get the burn time. So
It produces more
Isn't
smoke.
that what I said? Yeah, that's what I said. I swear.
So maybe it was something like that. So as Connell mentioned, you get about 20, 25 minutes out of this if you optimize it. Now, if I put a lot of oxygen to it, like throw it in the firebox, it's going to take that time down a little bit because there's so much oxygen burning the fuel faster. So what we've done is we've optimized this for these fuels that do not, or that do have accelerants built into them. So it does have oxygen that comes to it. It draws in from the perimeter here, and then comes out a hole that's inside the insert itself and provides the proper amount of oxygen so that it burns and optimizes that ton of the fuel you're using in there. So,
Right.
right.
So, thank you, Ben. I still swear I said the same thing. No, just kidding. So in our instructions, you'll see that you drill holes for oxygen. This eliminates that need with the little insert, and it folds up perfectly to slide inside the can. So that's an even nicer gift. And with Mother's Day coming up, right? Okay, so another easy thing is if you have this for charcoal, you can actually cook right on that. Connell touched on that a little bit, and this is $10. And I think on our 7-day challenge videos, I threw Instafire in the bottom, lit charcoal briquettes, and then I made this cardboard box oven. And you just put the charcoal underneath there, and then I hold it up with Coke cans. If you don't drink Coke, you don't have to use Coke cans. It's okay. Juice cans work just as well. Just make sure they're empty. No, empty of fluid, but you want to put some rocks or something to stabilize it. And then any kind of little grill or grate or like a drying tray or a cookie tray to hold it up. And then you can bake cake, bake anything that you would bake in your oven. And there's a formula, I think, on our handouts that will say how many charcoals for X number of degrees. It's like 1 briquette per 20 degrees or something. So you can get your oven to the temperature that you want it to. So it's nice you can control it that way. And this is really cheap. The most expensive thing was the aluminum foil tape. You have to buy at Home Depot, and it was like a huge roll that I hardly used any. So if you want to make them with some friends, then that's a good option too. And then this is a Wonderbox oven that one of our awesome friends made for us. There's a pattern on the back of the tutorials for this, and basically this kind of works like a Powerless crock pot. So it helps you conserve fuel. So if you boil your water with Instafire or any other fuel, you only have to boil it, and then you put that, you put whatever you're going to cook. So you can boil it for rice. You boil it for 5 minutes, and then put your rice in a pot in the Wonderbox oven, and it's like thermal cooking. So it's going to keep cooking it for a couple of hours and ends up cooking it with only having had to boil it for 5 minutes versus boiling rice for 45 minutes. So you can see there's little tricks like that that you can use with inexpensive and free things to, yeah, you can cook bread in it if you put the dough in like a can and then you have the water in a bigger pot. So these are really cool. If you can learn how to use them, they're great. You can keep stuff cool in them as well. So that's kind of a quick and dirty on the cheap and free things, but they're really easy to make. And now, before we run to the booths, what I was trying to say earlier is this insert on your order form, I forgot to mention this, is called the number 10 can insert. So you can actually order this insert and then use any number 10 cans that you already have. And this insert in the firebox, small one, you can order them on the form or you can order them online, but if you just look for them on our site yet, they're not there yet. We've just recently been introduced to them, so you won't find any information. So if you have questions, definitely email us. Okay, so now if you just want to exit through those doors, just exit through those doors. If you need an order form, we have extras. Are they down there now? Down there. If you want the handouts, make sure your email address is there, and all the reps will be here to answer any questions you have, and we'll be here to answer questions too. If you want to submit any paper order forms tonight, just find one of us.